Welcome to the Infrastructure Task Force Advisory Committee meeting, Monday, June 7. We will start with a call to order and a roll call. Will you be doing that, Pat? Thank you.
Mr. Angeli?
Here.
Mr. Brasky?
Here.
Mr. Ladd? Mr. Marshall?
Here.
Ms. Scott? I think you said name. Yes. Mr. Partington?
Here.
Mr. Walters?
Here.
Mr. Zeltman?
Here.
Chairman Martin?
Here.
Yep.
Thank you very much. Can I have a vote to approve the agenda? Everybody has seen the agenda?
Move to approve the printing, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Question.
About the agenda? Well, we have a move to approve and a second
Discussion.
discussion, yes.
So you have 4.1, continued discussion on developing moratorium.
Yep.
And then you have 5.1,
Yes,
ordinance modification discussion.
that's correct.
Are they different subjects?
They're related but different. We're moving into a different chapter of the discussion.
Okay.
We've already made the resolution, now we're moving into what now?
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a motion, a second, discussion's over, everybody approve the agenda, aye?
Aye.
All right. Approval of the previous meeting minutes, May 3. Actually, I read them again last night and they are beautiful, in my opinion. I thought they were just lovely. Unless somebody, there may be people who have extra things or concerns, but I thought that they were very well with.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, so do I have a motion to approve
So
the
moved.
previous minutes?
Second.
Moved and seconded, discussion.
Page 10, the first paragraph, the last sentence. This is talking about something you said, Chair. Chair added that the committee can also ask how the commission asks them to move forward with their recommendation. So you were saying basically when we meet with the commission, we're going to seek their direction for the task force going forward.
That's
Is that
correct.
what this is
That
saying?
is exactly what
Okay,
that's
then
saying.
I understand it perfectly. And then page 14, page 14, number 7, first paragraph. Mr. Castillon advised that the total is 180 million during this timeframe, October 2020, April 2021. I think that should be 1.8 million. Certainly can't be as much as 180 million collected in a year.
That number is not correct, yes.
So I'm thinking it's probably 1.8 million.
1.889,
So
because if you look at the letter in the back, it's
so it's really
1.889.
1.9 million.
Close to 1.9, yes, that would have to be a correction.
Yeah.
Very good eyes, very good eyes. Anything else? Ralph?
On page 6, at the bottom, just for more of a clarification. The first sentence, Mr. Zeltman commented that he has seen moratoriums issued and should insert to other utilities in the past. And then it continues based upon the lack of capacity of blah, blah, blah. Just want to make sure that that was inserted in there, because that's what I believe that's what I said. To clarify, I wasn't talking about the city of Fort Lauderdale with their water or wastewater plant.
So the way it is now, it says Mr. Zeltman commented that he has seen moratoriums issued based upon the lack of capacity at water treatment plants. Is there some change to this you would like to see?
Just inserting to other, in other words, moratoriums
Oh, in other jurisdictions?
to other utilities in the past.
Issued to other moratoriums.
No,
No?
to other utilities.
Oh, utilities, that makes more
And then I
sense
put in the past, so it's nothing current. It was something that I
in the past.
had witnessed, and I
Okay.
refrained from mentioning it again. And then On the next page at the top.
Can I just make a
Did you got that,
suggestion?
Patricia?
Wouldn't the word other municipalities be better than other utilities?
Well, it's,
Not that I care that much.
Yeah,
Government entities.
Okay,
it's
Oh,
basically
stop.
the water is
Well,
utility.
I think what you're trying to do is get inserted what you said.
Mhm.
Right.
Mhm.
We're not changing the minutes.
Right,
No, we're not
it's what
changing
did you say? Did you say utilities? That's what we're putting in.
That's what we need to put
We're
utilities.
putting in
That's what I
utilities.
got, two other
Right.
utilities.
Okay.
Even though I agree with you, it might be better, but it's not what he said.
gotcha.
Okey dokey.
Okay,
All right.
continuing with this pleasurable experience.
Oh.
On the top page, the last sentence in that first
Which page?
paragraph,
Which page are you on, Ralph?
7.
7, yes.
And it should read, this is, the last sentence says, Mr. Zeltman continued that wastewater, I said, treatment plants should be inserted. And then also, and then cross out present. Have should be replacing present to have.
I think we're doing grammatical changes versus exactly what someone's saying.
This is,
We're changing the
And
minutes.
I don't have a problem with that.
I know. That's why I was looking at you.
Well, the way it's
I don't have
written
a
now,
problem with
Ralph,
it,
it
it's
says
just-
that
It's a problem.
you mentioned,
can't change, you can correct if it's incorrect.
the way it's written now, it indicates that you said that wastewater also presents a capacity
Right.
issue that could affect the possibility of a moratorium.
so it needs
Is
to
that not what you
have,
said?
it needs to have the depiction of wastewater treatment plants.
Okay,
That's, I believe that's what I said.
City attorney, the issue is if the specificity of wastewater treatment plants was not what was said on the record, not added at
See,
this time.
that's
Yeah,
the same thing.
yes.
It has to be the statement that was actually said on the record.
Roosevelt always tells us that, which is true. So I think it's clear enough, I mean,
All right.
to me, I understand what you were saying, so I don't see any problem with it.
Let's see.
Okay, anything else?
Yeah, I think the last part of that sentence, instead of saying capacity issue that could affect the possibility of a moratorium, I just put could, I cross out affect the possibility of and insert result in a moratorium. That's just condensing it. Saying the same thing, but it's,
But again, it's the, she took it from the notes.
okay, I'm not trying to.
I mean, it's the same, you're saying the same thing, you're just saying it a different way.
Yes.
Okay,
Why bother with the third one here?
yeah,
But,
no, unless it's, no, come on,
Um,
pretty soon we're gonna call you David.
and I know I
Exactly,
said,
that's what I should.
You guys didn't know David, so,
What page?
page 11, the second to last paragraph, and let's see, who is this guy? Oh, Mr. Zeltman observed that the drop off in, instead of use, I said wastewater flows might also indicate the completion of recent sanitary sewer. So it wouldn't be use, I said
Flows.
wastewater flows.
that's material,
That-
yeah, that's
but
what
that-
you said, so,
Yeah.
Correction now. Can be-
Okay.
So
you
it's
should
not
make that.
use, it's
the
the
flow.
flows or wastewater flows, it has to be wastewater flows.
Okay.
See, one.
That's the way I wanted to end it, so. that-
thank you very much, appreciate it. And I wanna point out, let's take a vote, with those corrections, is everybody in favor of approving the minutes?
Yes, I
As
accept the
amended.
amendment, yes.
Yes,
I second.
okay, so everybody in favor of accepting the minutes?
Aye.
Aye, okay, so before we go any further, I do wanna point out to you all a number of very interesting things. Look at this lovely book.
Yeah.
Fabulous.
All right, I am no
Very
longer
nice.
gonna be running out my printer. Okay, especially the color. So
I really appreciate it.
we really appreciate it, and I want Pat to stand up and introduce herself, please.
Hi, everyone, my name is Patricia Raleigh, and I'm taking over for Pauline Ricketts. I work as law firm's senior administrative assistant.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
Got a
so
question
much.
for us.
Yes,
Will we receive something similar to this at every meeting?
We will see.
That's the goal, that's the goal.
Well, and the reason I'm asking you because, the total printing today would have been 64 pages of printing, and I looked at it and I said, I'm not doing it. So if we having something like this, then I'm like you, I don't have to worry about printing anymore.
I looked at that too,
Yeah.
so I'm not printing it.
No, I did print a couple of them that I thought were important, but then the machine would go, yes, Peter?
So my question about this is that if this is just available when we get here, then, you know, I can't read it beforehand from the hard copy. So I've got into the habit of reading everything off the iPad.
Right.
So to me, this is actually only useful if it arrives on the, you know, on the like the Friday before our Monday meeting. So I don't know what is intended. Is this intended to be mailed out or just for our records?
Good question. I personally like to use it here, presently while I'm sitting here and like, you can bring it with you. No,
But
no,
I'll just say that, they could print it and drop it off like they do planning and zoning board stuff.
that's
that we
right.
get in advance.
Historic
people feel like
preservation, you
it's
get a,
useful.
you get a packet the
If
Friday before.
if they just send it out via a email or whatever, you got it on your computer, you read it, and you get it here, you back up just like we just did to go through the minutes. If it's already available on the computers, I don't see the problem.
Yeah, I agree with that, but printing all this stuff is kind of going in the opposite direction to, I mean, I like having it personally. I also, being old, work off print things rather than screens. But, you know, 64 pages times whatever it is,
Yes, that's
15
right.
people,
Mhm,
it's a lot of printing.
yeah.
But if,
Well-
if this is what people want, I'm fine with it and I like it, but, you know.
Well, let me give you an example. In my condominium, we get everything on the internet. Everything comes. Me and another person on the board can't do that. I can't read it on the screen. I mean, I could sit there and suffer. But we asked the guys downstairs before the meeting, give me a hard copy. So if you are really into this, and if this is, you know, something that can be done, I'll work with Patricia and see if we can't get a copy mailed to you early.
Well,
Like on a Friday.
I don't wanna be a special case, so,
But you are special.
But you are. Everybody else seems to be making it work. But I would accommodate you if we could, because I understand how difficult it is for some of us old timers.
I'd like to have the hard copy too,
mean, I love the hard
ahead of time.
Well,
ahead of time.
let me work with Patricia and Raj and see what the possibilities are, because I am sure this takes a lot of work, a lot of time. And, you know, sometimes you just don't get it done until the day that it's here. But we'll concern is duly noted, and we will talk amongst ourselves to see if what we can do.
They could put it together without binding it with these spiral bounders, I mean.
It might be you just get one a copy with a stapler and mail to
Which
you,
is fine.
okay? Oh, we'll talk about it. All right. The other wonderful thing I wanna talk about is you may notice that we don't have dangling microphones anymore.
Great.
We have, Mauricio, take a bow. They set up a new system here for us, and it's all, you know, these cameras here with the microphones are up there, and even better, everything that's on here is on there.
Great.
So that we don't have to go flipping and looking. I have the mouse, and we can just go through the material on the big screen. So, technology is our friend today.
And so is Mauricio.
And so, right, and we also have to note something very important. Our meetings run till 5 o'clock. And there have been times when we've run over, okay? Now with everybody going back to in-person meetings, the next meeting up is Historic Preservation Board, and they start at 5. So the way this works is everything gets cut off at 4:45 for us because they need the time to switch over to the other meeting. So our goal is to end by 4:45.
Are we allowed to end early if our business is
We
conducted?
certainly can end early, and if we find that we're pushing it, we can all talk about maybe a half an hour earlier on a start time. But we've been pretty good these last couple of meetings, we've been out of here before 5. So, you know, if you feel like I'm pushing you a little bit, it's because we gotta get out of here by 4:45. All right,
So we need to stay on point.
we do, we all need to stay on point. So getting back to our agenda. Let's start with our agenda. The first item on the agenda is the one that's gonna take, it always takes the most time for some reason. It's a general discussion and comments by committee members. If you're gonna comment on anything that's on the agenda, could you just hold it, okay? If there's something that is not on the agenda that you wanna bring to our attention, this is the moment. So Ralph, you sent us all a communication. Would you like to talk a little bit about it?
Yes, it is the proposed underground train tunnel that the mayor and commission seems to be very interested in. They've, I guess, attended seminars, some have attended seminars in Las Vegas to understand the complexity of an underground transportation system. I wrote the article, actually it's a draft copy, but I had some concerns about the South Florida geology, the conditions indigenous to this area, like mainly the high groundwater, for one, which presents a lot of problems for these type of tunnels that have to be safe for a vehicle of some sorts to travel from point A to point B. I guess B standing for beach. They were talking about having a train system initially coming in from the west to the east to the beach area to reduce a lot of the traffic congestion that currently exists, and also for future traffic conditions. It's only going to get worse unless there's something done. So essentially, that's just the gist of it. And go ahead.
I've attended one meeting, probably about 3 weeks ago, and I've done some looking online and looking at the tunnel in Vegas and what they're doing. And I think it's extremely innovative. They're not gonna be using tracks. They're not gonna be using people's automobiles. It's gonna be electric cars. I know that they've currently been doing soil boring tests to see how we can do this. I think to myself, and I'm not, obviously don't have your expertise, Ralph, so your questions obviously are appropriate. I think that we have the tunnel under the New River.
Yes.
So we've dug down far before. I understand that these tunnels will be down about 40 feet, 45 feet. I think that we shouldn't spend a lot of time discussing something that we're not up to speed on yet. But I would like to see Marilyn, if everyone agrees, I'd like for someone to come and talk to us at the meeting next month. I also know there's a few of us in town that want to go out to Las Vegas and actually see the tunnel. So if there's members of this committee that also want to go see it, let me know. So when this is scheduled, as many people that want to go can go. And, it's going to be your own cost, etc. But I'm extremely excited about it, I'll be honest with you. I think it's innovative. I think can you imagine connecting the Bright Line to the beach and then maybe having from the Bright Line to the airport as the secondary? We'll see over time, but that's my 2 cents worth.
Roosevelt.
Do you want to respond? Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to clarify that even though I have some reservations about it, my purpose was to bring it up for discussion so that we can analyze it to whatever degree, assuming that it's worth it. At this point in time, it's just a proposed system, but they all seem to be very interested in it, to just look at it, evaluate it, the pros and cons. I'm sure they're going to have a decision tree, yes or no, to determine whether or not that they proceed with it or not.
I think this committee should be definitely informed and educated.
Well,
because of what we do.
That's one of the things that we should discuss today.
Right.
Do you remember when we
I
discussed
just don't want to spend an hour
No.
talking about this
If
when we don't have enough information.
Right.
I'm sorry, let Roosevelt finish, and then I'll.
But I have two concerns. One, and yes, it is a great idea, but is it possible? Feasible, I shouldn't say it's possible, but is it feasible when it comes to costs? And if we are talking cost and we are talking city only with federal and state help, which is not that much, where would the money come from? How do we finance such, and this is not a cheap project.
It's
This
cheaper
is-
than building a road,
No,
and it's faster.
it might be.
See, we don't know that.
It's not gonna be either, because anywhere you dig that tunnel, there is buildings already in the area. So when we're talking about cheapness, it's not gonna be cheap. It's gonna be extremely expensive, but who are we planning to serve? Who do we want to serve? When we talk about the city of Fort Lauderdale, and then we talk about, well, it's gonna go to the beach, you're gonna go to the airport, you're gonna miss all your passion. That's not the people who you need on the transportation system. You need people on the transportation system that need to get to and from work. And being underground, that eliminates a whole lot of stops. Cause you're not gonna have a whole lot of stops.
Let's hear from some more members. Wait, well, let's hear from some more members.
I mean, I think there's lots to talk about. I think that, the things that are not brought up, need to be understood. I think just what is the idea needs to be understood. I mean, if, I don't know how we can consider a tunnel with some form of transportation mode, whether it's a single occupancy electric car or something that's got more throughput, it's kind of a wonky term for maybe, like the rail. How you discuss that in a vacuum without thinking about the city's transportation planning overall, and what changes, if any, are going to happen or need to happen to the rights of way, to introduce other modes to give options for ways to get around the city. So otherwise, to me, it just sounds like you're just pursuing technology for the sake of technology. I don't know really how, like you say, we need to decide what, from a policy perspective, and what our values are, and what sort of transportation system we want to create, and then allow the technology to help us do that, rather than having the tail wag the dog. Is the way I look at it.
Okay, Gerald?
Every point that everybody brought up today has some validity. You're absolutely positive, right? I'm gonna come at this from a different angle. Everything around here takes too long.
Absolutely.
Okay. And if this is experimental from the standpoint, two of the issues about the boring company, about that name, is it's cheaper and it's faster. And it's proven technology. It's been used before. So I think if this experiment furthers improving and increasing the speed with which projects get done, that's worth the price. I'm talking about going over the river. How are you gonna get over the river?
And
For a long time. For a long time. We're still not over the river. The trains and boats and cars and people and bikes do not get along in this city very well. No, they do not.
Shane.
Say what you'd like.
There's no room for
There's no
people
room,
and bikes.
we're all competing. Shane, you're,
Before I put my foot in my mouth, I'd like to know a lot more about
It's
the
your foot,
project.
your mouth.
I definitely agree with all the points that have been put out. And, to Roosevelt's point, I don't think it's going to replace, obviously, mass transportation, but I don't know if it's gonna help.
all right, then Peter?
So this is in the nature of information, which I think is correct. I think what was driving this in the first place was the mayor's desire to see a tunnel rather than a bridge. That's on the Bright line. And Department of Transportation estimated the tunnel based on their experience with that tunnel in Miami, over to the port of Miami.
Right.
And it was therefore significantly more expensive than the bridge. So then the mayor looked at alternatives, and that's how the boring company came to our attention.
Okay, all right, so one last from Jackie and then I'll try and sum it up so we can move on.
The tunnel that they're proposing or talking about, and again, the city hasn't received anything formal from Boring yet. They've been here, they've done soil tests, is my understanding. We've met with them, I was at a meeting where they were there. To put a tunnel from Brightline to the beach would take not more than 2 years. That's number one. Number two, we do have a tremendous problem in this city, transporting people from the west to the beach. And that affects my neighborhood, it affects so many of us that live off of the corridors that lead to the beach. So I think there's a lot of positive impact this would have. And if it's successful, then you'll be able to branch and do north-south. So it's not like you're just gonna have one line. It's gonna be able to be something expanded. And when you look at the wave versus this, I mean, this is innovative, a way of transportation. So I think we just have to wait until somebody comes and talks to us and gives us additional information. But I agree, everybody's points here are well taken.
Okay, so we need a presentation at our next meeting, which is probably not gonna, if we take a break in July, probably will not be till August, but I don't think that that's a bad thing because this is something that needs a little time to percolate. I don't know enough about this to comment on it, I'm in Shane's
Get
camp.
on YouTube. Get on there.
I think we all are.
Everybody looked at the videos.
Yeah.
But what I don't understand is it's just, it's another way to take your car to the beach.
No,
Well, we don't know what it
You
looks
can't-
like from YouTube, if I might say, what it does, it's a car. And you could, one person in a car, you could put 10 people in a car. We just don't know enough, and I agree
we're
with
not
you,
adding
Jackie.
cars, so you know that.
Yeah.
We're not adding cars, those cars will be in the tunnel.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
they will be Teslas. And you will get off the bright line and go into the tunnel
Right.
and jump in a 2-seater, a 4-seater, 6-seater, and be transported down to the beach and you're there.
Right.
So it's not like we're adding any cars.
Yeah, but it's, we should,
Well,
I'm not- I'm-
when you're adding cars in the car, those are new cars, 'cause
they're not cars, they're like a train, it's
But
like a
let's leave
train.
the tunnel.
I know what you're saying, they never leave car, but these are new trips. These are new trips being made to the beach by people, I mean,
No.
Really new or they're
Not new trips,
replacing
they're replacing
other
being on
trips?
the roads.
No, but induced demand will tell you
Oh,
that
they'll
once you.
fill that up, they'll
Right,
fill up
I
that
mean, but the
tunnel.
road's not gonna sit empty, people look at empty road and they get some.
There are so many things that come into play here. I mean, Roosevelt's point about who we doing this for, so that somebody can come from Palm Beach to Brightline to get to our beach? I mean, nice, but it's the same problem we had with the wave. The point of the whole wave was, this is the beginning of an interregional system and we're gonna go north and south. But nobody locally could use it. So, and I certainly don't wanna prejudge,
Yeah.
because something could be so
Presentation would
innovative
be
and
good.
interesting. We need a presentation.
Let me
Yes.
just
Can you wrap it up?
finalize
You
it.
started it, you can
I've
finish.
achieved my purpose.
Yeah.
Boy, did
It's
you
for
ever.
discussion of next. And so there's a lot of questions and there's a lot of things that we have to find out about. But I wanted to make sure that the Infrastructure Task Force Advisory Committee gets involved in this to help the city in their process of making a decision. There's also a cost element involved and how to go about it. These are, to me, I thought this was something that should be part of this group's involvement.
Well, I think that you have to look at our mission statement. I think when you look at our mission statement, which says we're supposed to be looking at all the systems, including transportation, it says transportation, and making recommendations. You can't get more clear than that, although they have not asked us specifically to comment on this, which they did on other things. They asked us specifically to comment on the water treatment plant, P3. They haven't asked us specifically on this.
They're still learning themselves, it's too early.
Right. Okay, I just don't wanna wake up one morning and have somebody put an unsolicited proposal on the table to build a tunnel someplace.
I don't even think that,
You can never
I don't even know if
We
somebody
need-
in the city
we
can
need
make a
information.
presentation at this point.
Well, then
Yes.
August is fine, because somebody's
Yeah.
gonna have to make a presentation at some point.
Maybe they could have someone from Las Vegas come here and give a presentation.
Well, let me ask Raj, I mean, have you guys been participating in any of these discussions?
Yeah, I have.
Okay, can you give us a little insight perhaps?
Well, I mean, from my perspective, And the first time when I heard this, tunneling is not a new technology. I mean, you know, for civil engineers, tunneling has been done
Long
for
time.
centuries, okay? And Ralph, in order to go back to your question about, you know, the geology and everything else, with our recent nearly complete redundant force main project, the diameter we're talking about 54 inches, 60 inches. So we already have done, in order to accommodate that pipe, 6-foot diameter pipe anyways. Okay, we've gotten through the permission and everything else. What they are proposing is a 12-foot diameter. That's going to be, so we already have done at least half of that as a part of our project. Their technology is, and this is where the proprietary technology comes into play, that they move very fast. They do take into account all the factors that everybody has raised here. They take into account the foundation, where they are. They take into account the geology. They take into account, different types of conflicts and so on and so forth. So anything that is going to be designed, they are fully aware because they are doing this work in a very dense urban environment. Las Vegas, where they are, you can potentially say that they did have the room, but they are also working in Los Angeles, and those are in some very dense urban environment where all those factors they exist. And I think whoever said about Jack, you might have said that they are going 35-40 feet, and they'll make sure that there is enough clearance such that the utilities, etc., are not impacted. The only challenge that as an engineer I see is just making sure that all our infrastructure, they are properly placed such that you can position them or align them properly. And fortunately, we are at a point where we can work with them, whoever, boring company, to make sure that that is accomplished. It is going to take into account the traffic volumes that we are talking about, the origin, the destination, the traffic volume at each segment, so that they can make a decision where the drop off or pickup is going to be. So all those are, design variables that they don't take it very lightly. And the other thing that I know about is that, and it might be different because each place they have their own, or each city has their own contract, but they're pretty, they do a very thorough job in terms of, what they need to do. So I'm not, in terms of the feasibility, I don't see too much of an issue. The question is going to be, how the funding is put in place, and I'm sure that the funding can come from, several different sources. It could be a combination of us, the federal government, the state government, the DOT, and I think Peter is absolutely right. It started with the mayor's desire to have a tunnel, and they gave the mayor a price of $3 billion, and that, of course, that forced him to say, hey, that can be true. And then the overhead bridge was $400 million. So it was still, so it's not only $400 million in the overhead, but it is also his vision about dividing the city.
Right.
Okay. So if you put all these things together, I do not believe, and I could be wrong, I do not believe that it is going to be as expensive, but what sources of funding is going to come from, that is still up for debate. So that's all I can share.
Yeah, the other thing too is like Washington DC has one that's already in place. So it's not only taking Las Vegas's word and information, there's other cities around, like I said, Washington DC. That's that photo, if you were able to open it up, that I included in that submittal. So there's
It's a track, right? It was a track that you had there.
Yeah, it was a track
It's a
on that
train.
one, but the idea is that it's a tunnel underneath
Gotcha.
there. And
The
so
concept
there's,
is, the concept is very simple.
Yeah.
It is the same concept that you go in a very typical tube train, except, you don't have the tracks. You do have the point where you can get off and get on, depending on the strategic. That there are certain areas that you would need, the offset from, where the tunnel is going to be, so that you can build the shaft to go down, up, whatever transition is. But the concept itself is not something unique. It is
no,
just
right, it's, my point was, it's been done, there are cities around that have the system, and a good investigation would consult would be to consult them to find out the good and negative things that occur in this before the city or anyone make a decision.
Well, I'm sure that a lot of study is gonna still go on here. But I just have a technical question, engineers. I can see the tunnel, no big deal with the tunnel, but every time you have to get down to this tunnel and up from this tunnel, you need a chunk of space.
Yes.
You need right of way, you need to escalators and elevators and ceteras. That means there's gonna be right of way that has to be taken someplace. That's very expensive. And also, you gotta see how many of those you can get, along this track. I mean, if we're just getting people from point A 4 miles down to point B,
No, it is, they
it's
will
gotta be
have-
every place.
Yeah, I think the spacing of where they're going to get off and get on is going to depend upon such that the acquisition of the right of way or
Right,
anything is going to be minimal. Fortunately, in this corridor, there are enough areas that you could accomplish that.
well,
So, and that is going to be part of the detailed design.
okay, so we gotta see it, we gotta
Yes,
see
yes,
something.
yes.
And the other thing,
Alright.
generally, a lot of these systems are placed by parking lots where people drive their cars, say out in the west, pick up this train and head eastward. So there's a number of options regarding where and how, so.
Yeah, all those are design parameters that will be taken into consideration, as I said, the origin, the destination, the volume, the location,
Yeah.
where people are going to park, what type of offset is needed, what type of conflicts you have, what type of geology is there, such that they can design their equipment such that they can move with their proceeds. So there are all those.
Right.
Okay,
But
well,
the idea
it's a
wasn't
lot of work.
designing it here, it's,
Right,
the idea
and-
is just the idea and
Yes,
discussion
right,
for pros and cons.
And how to design it is certainly not our
Right,
within our function, but within our function, it's to look at it, to see, to comment on it, to talk about it amongst ourselves, and to see if we feel as a group that there's some issues that we should bring to the commission's attention. Okay, next meeting. All right, moving
Are we
along.
still on discussion?
Yes, we are,
Can I bring something up?
certainly.
Does everybody continue to hear people complaining about our infrastructure
overall,
overall?
of course.
Okay. Everybody agree with that?
No, I
The
don't.
majority of
Not as much.
citizens,
I don't.
I don't get as much as we used to get.
Me too. And I was the epicenter at the council, constant, boom, boom, boom.
I just feel like as a city, we really haven't done a good enough job letting all the residents, I hear this from people moving here and trying to buy property, all their concerns, okay?
That's an interesting
You know, it's
perspective.
not a secret that we've had these problems. And I feel like as a city, we haven't done enough PR to let everybody know what a fantastic job these guys have done, and we're on our way of getting this all fixed.
Well,
And I find it frustrating because what a great feat for a city of our size to have gone through this, and we're succeeding, but we're not using it and marketing it. And it's ridiculous in my opinion.
What's up?
Yeah, there's that commercial on TV that said one bad idea can kill 1,000 good ideas. That's what's happening in the community. We said, oh, they spent this amount of money and they got new pipe, they got dual lines, and then the next day they got a sewage spill.
Right, and then,
And everything that we said the day before goes out the window. Nobody wants to hear about what you done if we still having a problem. So as we get more and more work done on wastewater and the sewer and all that, I think a whole lot of this stuff is gonna go away.
well, I think you bring up a very good point. And I was gonna save this for the continued discussion, but when I presented at the commission our recommendations on the moratorium, I thought the angels would sing and the seas would part and, people would be just, wow, no moratorium, that was big. The mayor said, thank you very much. And, even the reporter from the Sun Sentinel, I couldn't even get her to bite on it, So I think in this whole pandemic time, people have sort of forgotten about it. But you're right, the next time there's a break, bingo, it's gonna be right on the front page again, and you're absolutely
Why don't we
right, they
make a
have work to do.
recommendation? Why don't we make a recommendation as a board that the city move forward with some type of public relations campaign to educate not just the people that live here, but everybody.
Well, but that's what we're gonna talk about with them when we have our workshop with them. We're gonna explain to them all the things that have happened, and that's why we have come to the conclusion that we don't need this, and that'd be a perfect stage.
Cause I mean, I just,
A perfect stage to showcase everything that's happened. Yes, Peter?
So I get a lot of information, but it's because I'm plugged in, I'm
Right.
signed up, and I've had emails with the video of the boring, of the trunk main going in. But I think Jackie is right. Unfortunately, you have to kind of opt into that information, and we need to make more of an effort to push that information out. Now, the city has a new public information officer,
Yes.
and he does these very zappy videos, very snappy and to the point. But I wonder if we could ask him or his department to push the information about all the work that's been done on the infrastructure out to explicitly to other organizations like the Chamber of Trade and the Realtors Association
the
and people
newspapers,
like that.
everybody needs to hear the job we've done.
They have been running
Ridiculous.
something on their channels, like Channel 78 and the other ones. And that's, the positiveness of these systems that's replacing the old systems and it's reducing it. But you're right, they need to wave their flag and let everybody know that they've done, as I've used the terminology, a Herculean effort in getting these old mains that had been ignored for 15, 20 years or longer. And they have jumped in the saddle and have ridden this horse to turn this thing around. So they do deserve accolades. I try to give it to them every time I can.
When Tallahassee comes down on us, everybody knows about it. But when we fix it, only a few people know what's going on.
It's a
And
point.
that's my frustration.
Well, unfortunately, we became the poster child for failing infrastructure in the
Right.
whole country and
Right.
even beyond the country.
And it would be nice to become the poster child for the solution.
Yeah.
And how
Instead,
fast we've done it
and how much money we spend,
Great job we've
yeah,
done. I mean, it's just,
Yeah.
it's a great
Alright.
story.
It
But
is.
it's a secret right now.
Okay.
Hmm.
All right. Any other general discussions? No? Seeing no general discussion, let's move on.
Just one
Yes,
last little
certainly.
point, a nit.
What?
When they do an infrastructure project, when they start one, they should finish it. That Herculean job that you talked about, absolutely right. Give these guys credit. They pulled pipe in all directions, 6 feet across, 40 feet, 60 feet underground.
Right.
Didn't make a lot of fuss, muss or other. Paved the roads, everything's wonderful, didn't paint the lines.
They're gonna get the
They're not
lines.
the ones that
I'm
do
sure
it.
they get to the lines.
That's because it's a
Job's still
county.
in progress.
That did in my neighborhood.
No.
That did my neighborhood.
I got the lines.
Obviously, it's connected.
Yeah. It's a timing problem.
It's
a
an
timing problem.
integral part of the restoration. No project gets signed off, accepted unless the striping, the signage and everything else as in the plan is in there because it would lose the luster.
Right, and then there should be the sign, this street and this project was brought to you by the city of Fort Lauderdale. We spent X number of millions of dollars, yada, yada, yada.
Recognition.
Yes, Roosevelt.
I just carried out the wishes of my bosses.
Oh, you're so good, Raj, yes.
That's it.
Just one other thing, we was separated for about a year. And even though you guys could not see me, I watch you guys every meeting. And it wasn't intentionally done that I was hiding or anything like that, but thank you, Madam Chair, for being a good chair and keeping us there and this is a prime example on what you done. Everybody who was here before this situation
And we're
started
back.
are back here today, and that's good.
Okay,
Even
All right.
with a few new faces.
that's true. Okay, let's get on to the item number 4, which is old business, which is continuing our discussion of the moratorium. Again, we're not discussing the we have made our recommendation,
Thank
okay?
God.
That recommendation was presented to the commission at their last
Oh, yeah.
conference meeting as a communication. I gave it myself with a couple of comments, some additional comments that I made. Again,
No having any votes.
I thought there would be Hoseas all over the place, but actually they were very grateful especially the mayor, I should not downplay the mayor's thoughts on this. He did say, thank you very much, this was a big step that you all have taken. And he agreed, as did all the other commissioners, that what we need is we need a meeting in September. So they agreed that in September, we will have a workshop. It will either be a standalone workshop or it will be a joint workshop during their conference meeting so that we can talk about how we came to this decision. Again, a beautiful place to showcase all the stuff that we've talked about during our time here, all the materials that the staff has presented, all our analysis, how we came to this decision. That would be one part of the workshop. The second part of the workshop, as our second motion indicated, is well now what, guys? We're gonna be here until March of 2022, I believe.
February 18th.
It's February 18th.
Counting the days.
Yeah, but it's 2022, right?
Right.
2022. So it's not an
Did you bring
insignificant.
that up to them?
Yeah, yes, actually, I put it in my comments.
Yeah.
And I said, so we would like to talk with you. We'd like to get from you commissioners, what else do you want us to do? I mean, we could keep meeting like this and we could bring up our own issues like Ralph just brought up the tunnel, okay? And we could look at that. We could, I don't know, sidewalks. We could do sidewalks because we did not spend a lot of time on sidewalks. But if you go down the list of things that the city looks at when it talks about infrastructure adequacy, you know, the ordinance, the original ordinance, and it's got about, I would say 13, 14 items. We knocked off 4 or 5 of them in our moratorium recommendation. But there are other things in there that we might want to, transportation's the big one. We haven't really talked about transportation. So maybe this tunnel is the time to segue into that whole discussion. Yes, Jackie?
I wonder if this committee, moving forward, would be more appropriate to be a committee like charter review. Like, they don't meet every month unless there's something to discuss. So instead of meeting monthly, I'm talking about in the future, maybe they have the committee, you know, just to meet when there's the tunnel or when there's some other transportation or infrastructure issue they want us to tackle.
Right, well, there's other big issues like city facilities. This whole idea of the joint county-city building, okay? I mean, that's a city facility. Is that something, we wanna get involved in or even understand and comment on? Maybe the commission wants us to weigh in on it. They wanted us to weigh in on the water treatment plant. We've got another item on the agenda here about the 2 unsolicited proposals to build the water treatment plant. That's coming up later in the agenda. I mean, things do come up.
Right, but so you know where I'm coming from. I mean, I think the committee serves a purpose. I just don't know if we need to meet monthly.
Okay,
Whatever.
but we should ask them these questions. I don't wanna get to the, you know, the month before the expiration of our mandate, and then did what we did the last time, everybody running around like chickens without a head, trying to say, should we renew, should we not renew, what should we say? I don't wanna do that again. I wanna get to that
They need to make a
point.
decision as to
Yeah.
what they wanna do with this
Yeah,
group
right.
long term.
Right, we've grown up, we've done a lot of work, we've made a lot of recommendations. I think we've done really good work, but you know, we're their committee. Where do you see us going in the future? Yes, Peter.
So, firstly, let me commend the chair for what an excellent, I watched what you did in front of it, and, you know, you represented the task force very well, and you put our views over very succinctly, and without your presence there, you know, we wouldn't have achieved an agreement to have a meeting. Let me remind you, Chair, and I'm sure you haven't forgotten, because it took you probably quite a long while to do, you did this outline.
Yes, I
All the
did,
things that we have
just
looked at,
to get the juices going.
which is an awful lot.
Yes, we did, it's
And
tons.
in going forward, I feel like we should almost start with what we've already looked at, and see, you know, what's missing maybe. And then the final point I wanted to make, I've always regarded the primary function of this group is to serve as, to speak for the infrastructure, to serve as the voice of the infrastructure. And like Jackie said a little while ago, it's kind of being forgotten now because things aren't breaking at the same rate, et cetera, et cetera. It's out of sight, out of mind. And, you know, it seems to me one of the main functions is to be the pressure group for repairing and replacing the infrastructure. And that in turn translates directly to funding. And, you know, another function of this group, I think, is to keep the pressure on as far as holding the Commission's feet to the fire in funding the repair and replacement of infrastructure. So that's how I see it.
Okay. All right, well, we'll put that on the table to them in September. So that's my update on our communications to the commission.
If I
Yes,
may,
yes, certainly.
I would like to see a kind of a status report on those that you mentioned, on those infrastructures. One, let's say the police headquarters. I know that's in progress to have a consultant, to have, and now they're looking for bids. But I think it would be important, sort of kind of a gratification to see what we've done in the past years, to see where those various infrastructures, you know, where are they now, and what's their future?
Okay.
Well, one way to achieve that, I suppose, would be to, the staff has this because you distributed this at
Yeah.
the previous meeting. Maybe we could just ask at the next meeting that they update this and make a comment on your list of things, any progress and anything in the works that we might not be aware of, just so that, you know, this was a pretty comprehensive list that you put together.
Well, there was no magic in that. All I did was I took all the things, all the backup material, okay? If you just go back in our agendas and you look at all the backup materials that were presented to us, that's a list. That, I think, should be put together as a document, all the backup material. And it'll be this thick, and it'll be very impressive. This is the stuff that we have waded through. And we can go back to 2017 because, you know, there's a lot of stuff. And the book gets like this. But, you know, not to impress them with the book, but people are gonna ask me when it turns out that my friends realize that this committee has not recommended a moratorium, I'm gonna get a lot of flack. And my answer to them is, you gotta look at the material. You gotta look at the data. And you have to look at the instructions we were given by the city's attorney that you have to have a situation that is so dire. You know, you have to have a real problem that is documented by evidence that there is a real problem before you can even think about a moratorium. And we all
Did we take a
agreed.
year evaluating this?
We took more than a year evaluating it, and we all agreed that we don't see anything that is not being addressed, maybe not fast enough, maybe not enough, but there's a plan, there's a process, there's money, okay? So we all agreed that, you know, we could not in good conscience recommend a moratorium. We could recommend some changes in the process because there are holes that we, you know, are concerned about. But we need to have that material. So what I'm suggesting is that maybe rather than have them work off of this, which I just threw it together, if we could get the staff to go back and look at all the backup material from the past meetings, some of it is duplicative because we saw it twice. Some of it has been updated, okay? The CIP from 3 years ago is now the new CIP. So maybe it's just the current CIP. But if we could have that list of all that material, I think that would be very good for all of us to look at and say, okay, well, we looked at this. I didn't understand this,
Yeah,
maybe we have to
Bible
go
list.
back to look at this again. But you know what I don't see on this list is I don't see we didn't do this. So maybe we should be doing that. So that's a very good suggestion.
Can we discuss this some more? We have to remember that we serve at the pleasure of the Commission. And I seem to remember, is it a year or more? I think it was while meetings in person were still going on. And it was just prior to the Commission giving us the specific task of looking at the moratorium we gave them some sort of an outline of what we felt we could be looking at moving forward. And I distinctly remember the mayor saying, there's an awful lot of stuff on this list. And I took the implication to be that we were actually starting to tread on what the commission regarded as their bailiwick.
I think you're
Because he
right.
didn't really bite on that
Right.
list. He said, work on the moratorium.
Sewers, then they said to us very specifically, sewers and water.
So I think
They were not
that
wild
we-
about us doing other things.
I don't know, we should go to the commission with like a long laundry list of stuff. I think we have to select 3, 4, 5, 6 at most major topics that we could suggest that there's a rationale for keeping this infrastructure task force in place.
I
Well-
would take a different approach. I
Okay, how would you approach it?
just to really see where their heads are at, I would go, this is what we've done, and is there anything else you'd like us to do?
Onus is on there.
I agree.
Absolutely.
Okay,
You said it that
Then
time.
you
Alright.
know really where their heads are at.
yeah, because there's no point in us meeting for another, 18
Right,
months.
because we bring up new ideas.
Right, no.
Let's hear what they think.
If they're not interested in, if they don't want us to do certain things, as you say, that they feel that is not within our
And their
bailiwick.
answers might surprise us. They might have ideas that we didn't think of.
Let me tell you, I was shocked, one of the commissioners, who shall be nameless,
We'll go back and look at the tape.
when we were talking about the rate, the stormwater rates, okay? Wanted to know more deeply about our position on this. We supported the alternative hybrid thing, but that particular commissioner wanted to know, do you think it's fair? Do you think it should be on the taxes? Do you think it should be on the water bill?
Who was it?
We
Dan?
didn't get into those things, and I said to her,
Okay.
I said, if you want us to opine on these matters, you have to ask us. Okay, so, I'm with you, Jackie, let's sit there. Hey,
I
guys,
don't wanna give them a list. I'm
this is
voting.
what we did, okay? And this is what we're currently working on. We're looking at the tunnel, we're looking
How
at
else can we help you?
transportation.
Yeah, there you go.
Where do you see us going? What do
How
you
else can
need
we
for
help
us
you?
to do in the next 18 months? Whatever number of months it's left, is there something specific you want us to do?
And then you say nothing and you force them to talk.
There you
That's the
go,
way you play.
Can I ask
I like
Jackie a question?
of course.
So, you're saying you don't want to give them a list of suggestions?
No.
You're not saying that we shouldn't give them a summary of what we have looked at?
I think we give them a summary of what we looked at, what we've looked at, and what we've done.
Yeah.
And now we would just like to know, is there anything else you'd like us to do?
I agree with that.
And that's it.
Then make a motion?
Well, I don't think we need a motion, but what we need to do is we need to have that put together. We need to go over it at the August meeting to make sure we're all
And don't tell me
comfortable
we
with it.
haven't done.
No,
Let them think. Let's see where their heads are
let's
at.
tell them what we've done. You'd be surprised. Some of them I said, well, we've been thinking about A, B, C, and D. What do you think? Fine, if you want us to think about A, B, C, and D, you just told us, we'll go back and look.
Right.
You've got a valid point, you got a great point about it's not ad hoc, it's ad needed. As opposed to
Yeah.
persistently being
Meeting.
there and meeting, is we're gonna get to a spot where when they need something investigated, because they're getting poked at, or
Absolutely.
they've got strife, then we'll look at it. The other thing, there's a follow-up to a conversation that happened a little bit earlier in the meeting about the publicity associated with the infrastructure, particularly the exploded pipes, right? That everybody remembers. Not everybody's on the same page when it comes to positively publishing something about infrastructure.
What do you mean?
Best you can do is break even. Best you can do in an infrastructure setting when it comes to sewers is go unnoticed. When it's working, it's working. Leave it alone. When it's broke, everybody notices. It's a reverse logic. The best you can do is go unnoticed.
You mean from a business perspective?
And from a marketing perspective. What are you gonna tell people? We got great sewers? I mean, we're sensitive to it because we endured the breaking pipes, the odor, the cleanup, the getting yapped at 2 o'clock in the morning, right? But when it's working. The best you can do is go unnoticed.
But let me play devil's advocate to that theory.
But you're in real estate. You wanna not
I'm
go.
in sales.
You wanna go
It's all
not
about the
unnoticed, yes.
positive. It's all about, telling the truth, but being very positive about things. So devil's advocate to what you're saying is, we do nothing because you can only break even. So we're here. Then we have another break. We're down here. Then maybe we come up here, we go down here. We never go up here.
What's worse, saying to everybody that it's wonderful now
No,
and
no,
having a
not
break?
saying that not saying that it's wonderful. Look what the city has accomplished in this short period of time. Look how great the employees are, the commitment, how the citizens have, rallied behind it. I just want some rah-rah going on, because it's a big feat.
Well, I know my neighborhood is gonna have a party in September to celebrate the sewer
But
pipe.
it's not gonna make the national news
No,
like
it's
we
not.
did when we.
We can have a party to celebrate
like
a
he said,
sewer pipe.
We're ground zero in the nation.
Mhm.
Anyway, I've said my piece.
Okay.
But I think that, we should, let the public know what a great job the city has been doing. For an example, just like with the wastewater pumping stations. They're going through now and it's already started and continuing to do it. And it's been down here and not much hurrah has happened, but they're putting in variable pumps so that the pumping at the station, I won't get into too much detail, is in the performance curve of the pump. Which means there's smoother running and more efficient handling and it's more economical. Maybe that doesn't sound too big, but
No, those
all
are
the
features and
stations-
benefits.
right, all of the stations in the city, that's gonna save a lot of money. And as these things progress with our wonderful old gravity sewers, the flow into that's the wastewater flow into the George D. Lomar wastewater treatment plant is coming down. So there's a cost to treat the groundwater. So when that groundwater is eliminated from the equation, it's gonna cost less to do that.
Right.
So these are things to hurrah about. And they may sound, well, so what, to make people understand the significance.
When you explain it like that, you bring it down to a level that the average person can understand, that's great.
Yeah. Okay,
But we
well,
keep it a secret, so let's just,
to me, you need a visual. I would like to go into a meeting with a map with all the pump stations on it. Beautiful maps in here. You can just go to these maps here and say, here, look here. We know where all the pipes are. We know where all the pump stations are. Each one of these dots is getting an upgrade, so that it runs more efficiently, puts less stress on the Hujiwatsi. We got the money's in the bank. That's why we don't need a
but that's
moratorium.
that's probably too technical for the average person.
I don't know about that.
In other words, you got to do different levels of,
To me, I like to see something.
I
You
understand,
gotta hand them something.
yeah.
Yes, I agree with you.
Mhm.
I don't wanna tell you what to do, but I will tell you how I think we should do. Being a marketing person myself, the marketing person believe that, you make a person do what they don't want to do, make them enjoy doing it, and believe it's their idea.
Really?
Oh, yes.
I've never heard that.
I know, but that's what we do. So, what I always did is do what we call the in-reach and the outreach. The outreach is when we, the city or whoever is controlling a informational group. The outreach is when you go and out there and you say, okay, I'm gonna have a meeting at this location and all you guys come in and hear what we got to say. That's outreach. In-reach is when you go to their meeting
That's right.
and get on their agenda. That way you don't have to generate the people, they're already there. And that's who you talk to. You get them to buy into what you're doing. They will go back and tell, like you belong to the homeowner associations. See, that's a good group to meet with. Let the homeowner association presidents help you spread the word. And when we do it that way.
Chamber of Commerce,
Yes.
Realtors
Has
Association.
that's true, the Realtor Association, the Chamber. Have you guys ever made it, Raj, or Oscar, Omar, have you ever made a presentation to the council in the last year telling them exactly where we are and how great everything is?
Council of Civics.
Council Civics, that's a great venue for you guys to go talk to them.
Okay, well, there's many things that we can do, and it's a point well taken, and at some point we should be pushing this along, and I think our
We're gonna bring
debut,
it up to the commission when we meet with
yes,
them.
I think our debut is in September when we say to them, look, we did this, what do you want us to do? We think the word needs to get out now, and so put your people on it, getting the word out. And I'll volunteer to go to a couple of meetings, you'll volunteer to go to a couple of meetings, any one of us, or a group of us together.
But I'm even talking bigger than that.
Well, let's talk about how we're gonna do this, but we have to do it.
Yeah.
All right,
We are
Prime
doing
time
a
TV.
big presentation for the ASCE in September for all the projects that we.
for the engineers.
What's in
Yes.
Hazen.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is because our project is, flip side is very unique. So the American Society of Civil Engineers, Hazen as our consultant have, they sponsored and, we will be participating. And also our project has been, and this is something that I need to share with our communication folks, that the Pipe Institute has awarded this as one of the best projects in the country. The Force Main project.
There you go, put that presentation, make that available, we'll
And the other
market
thing is
it.
that what I've been a little shy, and I would take the blame. I'm just so focused on getting the Force Main certified, so that when I started, it starts delivering the water. And we are about 98% done. And I know that we are screeching towards 100, but I don't want to jinx it. I mean, sorry, it is just me.
No,
It's just me.
that's
So-
cute.
so
That's
it is-
cute.
It is just being an engineer, so right now, the northern segment is being tested. And the southern segment has been tested, or it is substantially being tested. And once the entire system is tested for its integrity, we are going to provide the as-bills for the approval. And once we have the approval, we would like to have the ceremony whereby you turn the valve and you can see the water being delivered. Okay, so that is the goal, so I'm just keeping my fingers crossed, and I don't want to just, as I said, jinx it. And those are the times when we are going to be making some.
Does the commission know about that award you got received?
Not yet. We'll be sharing that.
So Raj, when you put together whatever presentation materials you're gonna present to the engineers, okay? Let's use that sort of like as the technical basis of a more general presentation that we can then shop around.
Yeah, because it is just not the sewer pipes, we have done, although they have not gained as much attention as the sewer, because, these reasons, but we have done a lot of work in environmental areas, we have done a lot of seawall work, we have done a lot of water, replacement of the distribution system, and we have gotten the unsolicited proposal from the water treatment plant.
We'll get to that.
We've been working on, on developing the owner's representative. So there are a whole host of things that have been going on behind the scenes. And as I said, unless they get successfully completed, I'm a little kind shy, but I'm very, very proud of, many staff members who have put in many long hours. And I want to applaud them because they have to put up with me and my cross-examination. But at the end of the day, I think it is going to be very helpful, not only for the city, but also for their careers. So
Good.
I've got.
All right, so let's start, Nancy?
Just a quick comment, just a reminder that infrastructure is one of our commission top priorities.
Yep.
And we put out a monthly newsletter called Water Track that provides many of the updates that Mr. Verman just stated. And that information is being widely distributed and is available on the website to be widely distributed as well. So those are one-pagers in language that the public can easily understand. They work very hard not to be over-technical, and that information is one of our public outreach methods for how we are moving forward and the information that's available.
Thank
Can I
you.
ask her a question? Where else do you put it other than Lauderdale track, whatever?
It goes out, the notifications go out on Nextdoor, and they're also shared in a number of other social media settings that they're available.
But it's the Lauderdale newsletter, which is a number of things, not just focused on infrastructure.
So Lauderdale is organized by the 6 commission priorities.
Okay.
So there is a Lauderdale newsletter for each of those priorities that is coming out monthly.
Gotcha. I'll go look at that.
If I may,
Yes.
Nancy, maybe that could be provided to the homeowners associations. I know one that has a good newsletter,
I think it is.
and there's others that do as well.
And in theory, I believe that is happening.
Yes.
Okay.
Cheers.
Yeah, but
So.
But we need,
just-
but what we need to do is we need to get to the presidents of those homeowners association, make sure that they're not just looking at it, but they're disseminating it and talking about it.
That's the whole purpose.
Well, that's-
Yeah, and they're not gonna do it unless we give them some help. You give
They
that,
need to make a big presentation to the council.
they need to do, yeah, that's for sure, yeah,
And-
okay.
And what I was
Can
just
we-
going to
can
say,
we move along?
just real quick, just to extend what Nancy just said. So we are going to take the Laura track where lots of things they kind of get, hidden, in the text and everything else. They've been published for, several months, and a lot of people that still do not know. I want to take Jackie's concept of taking those projects, putting in some pictures, short videos, and making sure that we market the success.
Yeah,
which
there
is
you go.
like-
That's-
so
that's
that's where we are headed, and we are working with the strategic communication.
Okay, we'll work on that. So when you get the act together on that, let's talk about it at a meeting.
Okay,
Let's bring them here and talk about it at a meeting.
So,
Peter?
I'm sorry, Chair. Do we know what we're asking staff to do for the next meeting?
Yes, let me say what I'm thinking.
Okay.
What I'm thinking of is at the August meeting, we should have that whole appendix of all the things that we have looked at, okay? So that we can use that as a sort of the beginning of our discussion. Actually, I don't think we need to discuss what we're gonna talk about in September, we've already talked about it. This is what we've done, these are the things that we've recommended to you. What do you think going forward, guys? That
What
was,
else would you like us to do?
what else would you like us to, we will continue on our mission here, but is there anything specific you want us to do?
Let's continue on our mission here, man.
Well, we have a mission, and the mission goes until February of 2022, okay? Okay,
There is also a list that we sent to each commissioner for all their projects in each district, and they distribute that to some of the HOAs.
there's a lot of stuff, we gotta pull it all together,
Right.
August,
Right,
we
right.
pull it together. Okay, I'm gonna start, keep us moving along because we have to get out here at 4:45. So triple I is the status of the city's representative regarding the water treatment plant.
Did you do, sorry,
Yes,
did you do point 2 of 4?
Point 2 of 4, yeah, I updated you on the communication regarding the moratorium. I made my little, okay? Now, 3 I's is about the water treatment plant, but under new business, you'll see that there is ordinance modification discussion. I would like you to indulge me and let the city attorney's office join the meeting now before we talk about the water treatment plant, because he's been sitting there very patiently and I know he's got other work to do. The reason I asked the city attorney to come is because it happened that after we made our recommendation, like less than a week later, the city manager sends a communication to the commission saying, you guys can't do condition. You can only do capacity. I'm paraphrasing, okay? And he said, and the memo said, and I'm assuming you all got a copy of the memo, all right? Actually, it's probably in here.
We got it.
You got it, okay. So, at first I was very upset, because I said, wow, we just made this recommendation and less than a week later, the city manager sends a memo that says you can't do that. But, upon mature reflection, I calmed down and I listened to what they said, and it didn't say you can't do this, it said it will be difficult to do. Okay, and then they raised some procedural and conceptual problems with adding condition to the mix. And that's why I asked Dwayne to come here and talk a little bit about that. Can you give us a little bit of a, I don't want, as Rachel Maddow would say, did I get that right, or would you like to change that at all?
Who's Rachel
I'd
Maddow?
like to clarify it a little bit.
Thank you very much. She says that every night. She says, did I get that right, or yeah, okay.
Alright, Dwayne Spence, Assistant City Attorney.
Do you wanna come to the table and join us?
Sure.
We're all vaccinated, Dwayne. Maybe you're not.
It's optional.
I'm not fully.
All optional.
So the memorandum that the chair is referring to is dated April 19th. It's memorandum 21-033. And I believe that the portion of it is found in page 2 of the memorandum, where first the city attorney's office advising the city may only consider impacts on existing infrastructure directly attributed to a proposed development. And that's where the crux of the clarification is that in looking at development permits for a particular development, when you're considering whether or not to approve or deny that development, you have to consider the impact of that particular development on the infrastructure. So in the current system where it's capacity based, it's very easy for the engineers to calculate, well, this development is going to have X amount of dwelling units, and as a result, they're going to generate a need of this amount of gallons or volume within our system. And they calculate what the existing capacity of the system is, and it's a very easy calculation to determine what the impact of that development would be on existing infrastructure. The question when it comes on the existing capacity rather. The question when it comes to infrastructure and what was being stressed in this memorandum is the how to determine the connection between the proposed development and the public purpose that you're seeking to address, which is the condition of the infrastructure. You need to demonstrate a tie, some formula that demonstrates that an X amount of dwelling units in this development creates such an impact in the pipes that would be the cause of the effect that this committee or the city in general is trying to avoid. And that's where the difficulty comes in. So there would, in our book, there would require some kind of evaluation of the pipes. You would have to know the actual condition of all of the pipes affected by that development, have some system of understanding what developments impact which particular pipes, and then somehow extrapolate that to that development as the approximate cause of the effect.
All right, questions? Let's start with Jackie.
So, going with that, Raj or Omar, you guys do know the condition of the pipes, correct?
Yeah, in most cases,
In most
yes.
cases, you know the
Yes,
condition of the
yes,
pipes.
yes.
So, Dwayne, if they know the condition of those pipes, like it meets capacity, whatever, meets all the general stuff, but we know that the capacity very well is going to be, not the capacity, the condition is an issue. We know as a city and as a location that these pipes or whatever are gonna fail based on the condition. It's a predictability. How can we tie that in? I don't wanna hurt anybody, but I also know that the public is so concerned about overdevelopment that if there's a way of trying to put that condition in there and let them weigh on that as well, I think it'll make people comfortable and we'll know what we can handle and what we can't. Or if something would have to be delayed temporarily because of the condition.
So that's where it comes to the engineering question that lawyers will take apart. So the question is, when we are challenged for denying a permit, will our engineers be able to stand on the witness stand and say, we know for a certainty that they had to deny this development because this would have caused pipes A, B, and C to fail.
Okay, Ralph?
And the way to satisfy that requirement is, if the city has a layout of all the water mains, develop a hardy cross, keep a hardy cross because it's so level here, you don't have to worry about the elevations. Like I had to in California when I was out there, and be able to give the characteristic of all of the pipes within the system, such as, for example, an old cast iron pipe that has a lot of rust in it and creates a high friction within the pipe. That's part of the equation of a hardy cross, is the flow of water going through pipe. So if the city can generate, again, a hardy cross system with showing all the pipes basically all through the system, and then you have this proposed development coming next year, and then you can, with the calculations of the computer running it, you can put what that requirement is, what the demand would be for that, look at average day, peak hour, and what a condition would, a fire flow involved in it from a point of safety or danger. And that's how you would be able to determine, running that program, to essentially see, oh, we've got a deficiency in here. We've got something that's gonna take that down well below 20 PSI residual pressure, that they couldn't get the water in there to put out a fire of 1,500, 2,000 gallons per minute. So that's the kind of information, I think, where you're going, that you have tangible information proving that a development would in fact weaken the system based on its current condition.
So I don't understand all the jargon that's but the concept is right on point. It is exactly that something as elaborate that gives us some understanding of the capacity of the system or the strength of the system and the impact that that particular development would have placed in the grid that you're talking about, the resilience grid.
All right, Shane and then Roosevelt.
So the city has contracted Hazen to go out and do this risk matrix, they created it, so now they've mapped it. So basically anything that falls under high risk priority would be easily justified as needing to be replaced for quality purposes? Or is it not that simple?
Have you seen this material?
You're talking about actual replacement of pipes, whereas we're talking about the criteria put in place for determining whether or not to approve a development permit, when you can deny development permit or approve.
Okay, I apologize, I was mistaken, I thought it was allotting a certain amount of pipe replacement that was required as part of that development.
Well, I mean,
I'll cover that, I'll let you folks cover and then I'll probably just check.
yeah, wait, Roosevelt, you were next.
Yes, now, I heard everything that you said, like you was having problem with his jargon. I was having problem with yours as well.
Now.
Okay.
But I'm sure that if the presentation was being given to the commission the way the two of you spoke about it, they wouldn't know what the hell is going on either.
Mm-hmm.
So where are they getting their guidance from?
Very similar. I don't think they had any in-depth information on the engineering side of things, but it was a quick response to this board's communication. So from the legal side, it was a very similar analysis that was given to them.
So did they take
the
the legal?
memorandum itself.
Did they take the legal side or the engineering side? Which?
I don't think there was
So
an engineering
we're
side.
essentially saying the engineering side is going to be complicated. So there's no way of easily explaining it. And what we as attorneys are saying is that
You gotta do it.
it's foreseeably doable, but it's going to be difficult and hard work on the engineering folks to help justify it. And you know, there's gonna be considerable back and forth as the tests are developed and that they say, well, this seems reasonable enough for us. to say with certainty that we can attribute certain impacts to the proposed development. And we would have to take a look and say, well, what about this? You know, so it's going to, that part of it's going to take a lot more than just an easy explanation.
Peter, you're next.
So
And
I
then
wanted
Gerald.
to follow up on Shane's question
Let's go back
and
on this.
statement and then ask a question. So what Shane is saying is, because of all the work with Hayes and Sawyer, etc., we have a pretty good idea of high-risk infrastructure, and it's particularly pump stations and force mains. And let's say that you had a pretty large development come in, which was going to put a lot of flow onto a high-risk piece of infrastructure, and let's say that it is possible for a licensed engineer to say, in my opinion, if you put all this flow onto that infrastructure as it is at the moment, then it will fail. But I think in reading this email memo that went to the commission, even under those circumstances, you were saying the city could not prohibit that development because there would be an extraction, because the infrastructure had been allowed to get to that stage. It was no fault of the incoming development. Is that a correct statement?
Not quite, but close enough. So the
That means it's closer to yes, D-Wayne.
it is closer to yes, but I can't say yes. It is closer to yes, but I
Yes.
can't say yes because the nuance is there, and I might lose a lot of people in the process of explaining it. But Florida statute 70.45 provided a due process that prohibits that creates an animal called a prohibited exaction, and it defines that as any condition imposed by a governmental entity on a property owner's proposed use of a real property that lacks an essential nexus to legitimate public purpose, and this is the part that we're talking about in the memorandum, and is not roughly proportionate to the impact of the proposed use.
Okay.
So the proportionality question, it's not just whether or not that new development is going to contribute to the failure, but that failure is in proportion to the actual use.
Yes.
Yes.
The
Yes.
key.
Okay.
But on a high-risk piece of infrastructure, with a lot of flow being added, it might be possible for an engineer to say, in my opinion, engineers never say 100% certain. We never say 100% certain a bridge is not going to fall down.
Right, but to the point that
it's highly likely that this large development will cause this at-risk piece of infrastructure to fail. That would be sufficient of a statement to deny. Is that correct?
Correct, but your reports have stated that these are at risk.
Project.
Hazen and Sawyer has determined that this pipe, okay, has a high likelihood of failure, all right? And this is a new development coming in. All right, forget about the fact that we've already got 4 more developments that are coming in here and they haven't gotten here yet, but
But we
The next-
can't though.
all right, but then let's add it all up, okay? You add this guy in, this pipe has got a high risk of failure, and the engineer should be able to say with a high degree of certainty that you are taking a risk, a high risk of adding more capacity or more use onto this high risk
Flow.
piece of infrastructure. Now, maybe it's not a question of denying a permit. Maybe it's a question of you can get a permit, but you can't start building until this piece has been fixed. It's not your fault that this piece is high risk.
The point that we're making is that you've already said that this piece, with or without this development, is at high risk.
Yes, we have.
That's the issue.
Okay, so how do we get around it?
Well, that's kind of the problem.
Yes.
So I thought when the motion was made last night, and you may recall, I wanna make a point of clarification.
Yeah.
And I asked, I'm trying to understand what it is that we're saying to the commission, what we're suggesting they do. Is it just to evaluate the condition of surrounding infrastructure whenever new developments under review? Or is it them telling the commission what they ought to do about it, right? And I think Jackie said something like, well, that's up to them, what they wanna do about it. And because from my perspective, I mean, what you have, if you've got failing infrastructure, then if it's everywhere, I mean, that's typically the basis of a moratorium, right? But what we saw was that, I mean, look, it's not necessarily every single development is next to something that's high risk. You may have this instance that you just described. And in that case, you can make the case to deny the project. You can say, well, we've got failing infrastructure here, and you would deny the project, and maybe you would get into a battle of the experts on whether or not the impact it's gonna happen anyway. Will this actually accelerate it? You know, I mean, really, that's the question. Is this new development going to accelerate the inevitable or not? And so, but then going one step further is where it gets really problematic, where, you know, like what we used to do with traffic concurrency was like on big DRIs that went under like extra jurisdictional review. If a new project needed if there needed to be a new interchange, right? But that interchange is going to create far more capacity than what this project needs. So what they would do is you would do the pay and go, where the development would pay their proportion. And that's where the rough proportionality comes from the US Supreme Court.
Nice.
Right? That's in the exactions case. That's the Nolan Dolan and this prodigy. So, you know, the idea of being able to put the burden of something that the public ought to bear on the shoulders of one person is where it runs constitutionally afoul. So I think that it's very tricky to try to say, oh, we're going to deny for this reason. I don't even know how you can get away with then saying, well, you developed got to pay for a whole new pipe system that's going to serve not just your project, but all these other units, these housing units and commercial establishments that are using that too. You're providing free new capacity to them. I don't see how you can get away with that.
And I agree with 100%. You can't do that.
Right,
But
so-
you can from a public policy perspective. I mean, you're a responsible public policy person, okay? You know that if you do this.
Right, that's what I'm saying. You could deny it, right? If you could find a basis for denial, or, you know, you could, if you want the project to go forward, like you were saying, condition it and say, well, we'll let you build once the new infrastructure's in place. I mean, okay, but you can't make that development be responsible.
Oh, no, I'm not talking about making him pay. I'm simply talking about, well, some people may be talking about making him pay.
Some people may volunteer.
Some people may volunteer, but I'm talking about, I'm the commissioner, I'm the city commissioner. And I have to approve this project, and I'm looking at this and I'm saying, this is not a good situation, okay? What can I do about it? I asked my attorney. I don't want to approve this. This is a problem. What can I
You just gotta
do?
be sure that you can prove.
You gotta be sure. I gotta trust my
And that's
engineer.
what you were talking about. It's just gonna be really, really tricky. The lawyers are gonna have field days.
Oh, yes, we're gonna make work for lawyers, no doubt about that. But you know, my engineer has told me that this pipe has a high risk of failure.
Yeah.
This is coming in on that pipe. Am I gonna sit there and tell my constituents, I had no choice. I had no choice but to approve this, knowing that.
It's the next line, that next line of connection saying that the impact of this particular development will cause failure to that pipe. And but for this development being developed, there would not be a failure.
And what kind of review is that?
Yeah, go. I don't go that.
Conversation making that jump.
What do you mean? I just stated it a
Well,
couple of times.
everybody should keep in mind that the spot that we were standing on as a city 2 years ago came to us not because we ignored capacity, but because we ignored condition.
That's right.
Right,
That's number one, right?
that's correct.
And number two is, nobody ever said, I don't ever remember there being a discussion that said the onus will be on the developer to pay for the
Right.
correction.
I think I clarified that. We weren't doing that.
We weren't doing that.
I don't think that's, I've been discussing denial of permits. So the question that's on the table is that our current review process has an adequacy review that's based on capacity.
Yeah.
The recommendation from this board was to consider amending that condition so that the city commission can also consider the condition in addition to capacity when reviewing development permits. And that is the scope of which we're discussing.
Right.
And he's saying that's tricky. He's saying that's tricky to do. So I think that what we would focus on, let's make these repairs. We need to move forward find funding sources, proper funding
Well, we're
sources to make
doing
these
that.
repairs, and we are.
We are.
Right, and
But
that's
here-
why we made our decision.
Yeah, but in the
This memo
interim,
didn't
but
change
in
what we
the-
said.
yes,
It's
but in
not,
the,
we're not changing that, we're not going for a moratorium, we're talking about specific projects in an area where you've got a pipe that's in very poor condition. So what about this, Dwayne? What about the staff being able to communicate to anyone bringing a permit in that this project that you're proposing in this area, right now it can handle the capacity, et cetera, but the pipe is in very poor condition. And because of that, we can approve it, but it needs to be fixed. And our schedule as a city is to fix it 6 months from now. More than likely, that developer is gonna say, let me help. You know what I mean? So you're not denying him, but you're putting them on notice that we need to delay it because of that.
Proffers are.
And it's a
Yeah.
negotiating tool
they
too.
have-
and then you can offset it against his impact fees. That's the new law.
Right, well, that's all.
That's the new law. You offset it against his
I mean,
impact fees.
that
I
makes, that's good for everybody. It's
You know-
good for, I think, even the developer. I mean, they understand.
Right, yeah, we give the opportunity if they wanna make the
Right.
offer, then, yes.
Right.
So I did
I'm not
want to
trying to do
clarify the point, just because the discussion kind of got a bit confused. So we're strictly talking about whether or not we can add the condition of the infrastructure as part of the adequacy review.
As a basis of
And
denial.
as the basis of denial, and we're looking at the legal test of proportionate impact. That's where we're talking about looking at, where I'm describing, looking at whether or not this development is the proportionate cause of the
Let's change
failure.
that
So
terminology to delay, not to deny.
Does that help you?
it does not.
It does not help you.
What's the difference is they can do the project, but they've gotta wait until the infrastructure is fixed.
The issue is that by paying normally, the replacement that is, in the water and sewer rates, that we pay, there is an element which is an integral part of the calculation is R&R or replacement, repair and replacement. And once they pay, we all pay. So we pay to make sure that the infrastructure, when the sewer leaves the house and the water comes in, the entire system is repaired in a very timely manner so that it can continue. By paying their water and sewer fees, the expectation is that the city is going to do their job. And if they have failed to do their job, then are you going to hold somebody responsible for something that they should have? So said, okay, by the way, let's forget about it. We are letting you know that it is weak, and that can be done. But to hold somebody responsible for either development or anything, or even put that condition when they have already paid into the system for us to maintain, and we have dragged our feet, sorry for the the phrase, or we have not done in a timely manner, to make it to a point where it is now a condition that, oh, by the way, it can potentially fail. So that is the issue, in addition to what the legal part is, that the condition, it is very difficult to say at what point the material is going to fail.
Well, I hear where you're coming from, and we may be looking not at at an ordinance kind of solution. We may be looking at some kind of other review. But putting that aside for a minute, it'll never happen. I agree, it's gotta be. I think what I'm concerned about is your argument. It means that there is no development that can ever be reviewed or denied except for on a capacity. Absolutely nothing. So what did we do all this work for? Why did we go through all this trouble to identify the weaknesses in the system? Yes, we have a plan, but that plan's gonna take time, like you said.
And Madam Chair, the issue is that, and this, perfectly, whatever the committee decides and the commission wants to do, but if somebody has paid into the system for you to do your job and you have not done your job in a timely manner, such that now after paying I'm being penalized, is that the right thing to do? In addition, the inability to confidently predict that if I add another gallon of water, the pipe is going to burst. And there is no way to tell, there is no way to tell when the material at what point is going to fail.
I think we're all in agreement that there is no 100%. Peter said it, nothing is 100%. But there comes a point where reasonable people look at the data, the information, and say, it's got a high risk of failure.
Yeah, we can definitely do that. We can definitely say, well, this is your basin, this is where it is happening.
This is your basin.
And therefore, we are just making you aware, but is it going to materially accomplish anything other than putting somebody on notice?
I don't wanna put these guys
no.
through this if there's nothing we can do.
No, if it doesn't result in an
Or
action,
recommend that they do.
right. I mean, and we all agreed immediately after me, we all agreed that it was not our job to tell the commission how to do this. We're not here to figure out how to do this. We observed, based upon the information, that there are weaknesses in the system based on condition. We have brought this to the commission and we have recommended that they review this and figure out a way in the ordinance to deal with condition. Now, Commissioner Sorensen posed to you all, I don't know if it's been passed on to you yet, that he would like to see the attorney's office do some research. Research in where other municipalities have included condition in their development review process. Probably has not reached you yet because you're looking at me quizzically. It should be reaching you soon because he specifically said to Alan, he said, I want you to spend some time looking at and researching what other municipalities deal with condition beyond capacity. So we'll have a little more information soon, I hope.
I think we've passed along to them our thoughts, so this is all good.
I think that, we can't, nobody can fault us for not facing the reality. I'm sorry, Peter, I'm sorry.
So I had another reason for making the motion in the way that I did, suggesting the addition to the ordinance. And it sort of comes from what Raj said as far as we have not done our job, but it's not just the staff, it's also the commission as well. And I believe that had the previous commission been better informed as to the state of their infrastructure, it would never have got into the parlous condition that it got into. So I personally see value in every development that goes in front of the commission has a piece in there about the condition of the infrastructure on which additional load is being placed.
Excellent.
Yes, it may not be that there is anything there that enables the commission to say we are going to prohibit it, but the very fact that they are seeing that this development is coming and then another one and then another one, and they're all putting load onto at-risk infrastructure, I'm thinking it will concentrate their mind to do something about that, and do something about that comes back to money. So that is how I largely envision the main benefit of explicitly spelling out condition. And in addition, I envision in the same way that's done for traffic counts, or at least it was on the beach, but each development that comes with the spreadsheet that shows those flows being plugged in and dropping off when the DRC is.
You talk about traffic trips?
I'm just saying by analogy, when the development came in on the beach when it was under a trip threshold, it always was accompanied by a spreadsheet showing the additional trips and what the capacity was. Now we've been shown exactly analogous spreadsheet for flows being added to our sewer system. I think that should travel with the development application as well. Mainly, I'm disturbed by the apparent staff knows now pretty carefully the condition of a lot of our infrastructure, but it's not rising up the chain of command sufficiently. And I just feel like if adding condition to the ordinance under which developments are reviewed, it will automatically make its way in front of the commission, and they'll say, so we're approving another one on at-risk infrastructure. well, we can't do much about this, we better do something about the infrastructure quickly, instead of, here's another development, nobody tells them what the condition is, the stuff is that it's going on to. So this is I saw this as a mechanism for getting in front of the commission.
Very good, I mean,
I think
the
Weston,
the development
we call it Weston, I
letters.
think that's like one of the best points been made is that it is good information. And it does keep you informed, it keeps the public
Keep you
informed.
honest.
It keeps you honest, it keeps the public informed, it helps the public understand, well, why am I spending dollars? Oh, well, I'm spending dollars because this is why, I mean, I really understand what's going on. You're not misdirecting blame, you know what I'm saying, and so I do think this is a good way to keep information current.
So
It's a lot
let me
FYI,
ask you a question, Jackie, you're on planning and zoning. If you got along with your letter, you get a capacity letter. If there was also a paragraph about condition, and it said this particular project happens to be on one of these high-risk infrastructure drainage basins, okay? Or the pump station in this drainage basin is not scheduled to be fixed until so-and-so, and sometimes it's out of, line, okay? As a matter of information, okay? And you see this several times, you should be sending a communication to the commission that we have seen in the recent past, 4 of them on this line. When is this line getting fixed?
Yeah, we don't have the ability to vote something down unless it's.
No, you wouldn't be
unless it's
voting anything
illegal.
down, but I was on the board of standards and appeals, okay? And after we saw 15 applications for the same variance, we sent the legislators a letter and say, hey, we got 15 of these, go change the ordinance.
Right.
Yes,
That's when and what you're suggesting. Just that all 4 of those buildings, complexes
Right.
came online.
yeah,
4 months later, we had lines explode all over the place. Who get charged?
the commission, because they approved all those projects with the information.
The commission don't have any damn money. It's either the developer or it's me.
No, we play,
That's the way it is.
no, I see where you're going, I mean, who gets blamed? The city gets blamed, the city cleans it up, the city fixes it.
The city will be blamed, but what happened with the infrastructure previously was everybody claimed ignorance, and to be fair,
Yes.
the previous commission were largely ignorant.
Sleeping.
Because the message that our infrastructure was in a dire condition
Right?
had not
Understood.
sufficiently percolated up to the city commission level.
Are you feeling the love on this? Are you feeling the love?
I'm kind of, I've never done this with a board before, but I wanna reassure you that the dialogue and your prior recommendations to the city commission are well thought out and within the purpose of your committee, and I think what they've identified a problem, from what they've heard from our office, it's come back to you, and this dialogue has, I think, produced a reasonable solution, although it doesn't go to the full extent that you desire, but I think staff has the authority now to add that information to their staff review and their staff reports. And so it comes forward as Mr. Pardon has mentioned, and is a part of the review so that the city commission has that in front of them and can prioritize these infrastructure improvements based on real data that comes before them. I think it's an excellent suggestion for a tough nut to crack.
But if the denial or delay of this project is done because the commission believe that if we add it, we're gonna have problems. And this developer says, you want me to pay for or delay my project,
No.
or something that may or may not.
Let's take it to the next
Yeah,
level.
the condition, there's not a condition that says that, it's just a denial.
That's what our
Yes.
office would oppose, and I think that's where the disconnect would be. We're saying it's good to provide the information if the information is not unlawfully used to deny a permit.
Okay,
If it's
Right.
I think
used by
Peter
the
said it
commission
perfectly.
to stay abreast of the conditions of the pipe and where they need to prioritize the next round of
Yes.
infrastructure improvements,
Yes.
I think is a good.
Okay, Peter.
So,
That's why I
having
started saying
been
that.
staff at one time, this is how I think it might work. That a development goes in front of the commission and there's a piece that travels with it that talks about this is putting a load onto this at-risk infrastructure. So the commission will probably ask, well, can we deny this or
And
delay
the
it?
answer is no.
And the staff will say, we cannot tell you with a straight face that if you approve this, it is going to cause this piece of infrastructure to fail. So the commission will then look at staff and say the replacement or the repair of this particular piece of infrastructure.
Right.
And they'll certainly get that message the second or third time. So they'll push it back to staff, but it's once staff is armed with the mandate from the commission to do something about it, then they will start to work on that and maybe go back to the commission and say, remember that last development, you told us you needed to improve this piece. Well, it's going to cost X 100,000 and here's some places we could get the money from. So that's the way I see it working.
Can we put that in writing?
Why don't we give Raj an opportunity to
Yes.
put that in
And just,
writing?
just to extend, Peter, what you're saying, it has always been my concern ever since this report came out. And that was last year, the condition assessment as a part of the consent order.
Yes.
I have already prioritized, the one without having any dictation from anybody that this needs to go first. Now, having this additional information, what Dwayne has said, it is going to keep their attention focused on it such that when we submit the CIPs and everything else, it makes them realize that this is a priority. And with the next issuance of the bond, we'll make sure that every major, your force main.
Every piece.
Yeah, the force main that is high probability of failure is included in this, in the next project. So I already have that information, that was already the plan. But again, as I said, if we keep reminding the commission, it would just.
Okay,
I want to ask
but,
Raj a
yeah,
question.
yes, sir.
Raj, just because I'm on planning and zoning, will you begin this rapidly?
Yes,
The condition in?
the condition assessment is already there, the report is already there.
Yeah, but adding it to the
Adding
reports.
it to the-
Report,
yes,
can we get the
yes.
report?
Yes, we can provide you with that report when those projects are scheduled. In fact, one of them in the Dolphin Isle Basin was moved up because of the development in those areas, because we had some savings from a different project, so we moved that up in the priority so that it can get quickly.
So I'm
Okay,
talking about
Raj,
when a case comes
just
to
give me
us
a
for
minute,
P and Z
okay?
next month,
Yes,
or in a week or so.
and if it is within the basin of that high priority,
Well, or
we
just any project that's
Okay,
coming
sure.
through, we get the letters.
yeah, we can definitely include
Can
that.
you add that?
Yes.
So Raj, can I say, we trust you, we love you, but you're gonna be the Public Works Director for San Francisco someday, all right? And there's gonna be somebody else here. I love to put it in the ordinance because the ordinance lives beyond us. We have to find a mechanism where this is codified and lives beyond you.
Yes, Steve, I figured that.
Perfectly fine.
So maybe it's a memorandum from the city manager
I'm not going to.
stating that this is our policy from now on. Dwayne, can you give me some,
You can add it,
some
Dwayne, you know that.
suggestions
You're an attorney.
on that? How we can institutional,
it.
how
How
you
we can
can
do it.
recommend that we institutionalize this so that we don't come back a year from now and say, well, they were supposed to do that, but it slipped. Think on it, darling.
You can ponder it tonight.
Think on it.
Been nice working with you.
He's going to San Francisco.
No, that's great.
I'm
All right.
not going to San Francisco. I'll take the hurricane any day over earthquake.
Okay,
So,
okay,
sorry.
all right. Guys, we're getting very close to sort of, finishing this one. 2 more comments on this one and then we gotta go to water.
So Raj, on the nitty-gritty, can you make sure that your staff doing these reviews is completely familiar with the Hayes and Sawyer report and
Yes.
even plug them in and make them familiar, talk to the people from Hayes and Sawyer that have the most knowledge of the condition, so that when they're doing these reviews, they're absolutely up to speed with what Hayes and Sawyer knows.
Absolutely.
Right, okay. And I would even like to see a subsection on those development letters that says condition of infrastructure, there's no issues at this time with the basin and
We
and there are
already
no
do
issues.
that, Madam Chair, we are
You
going
do
to add one more sentence,
One
or
more
two sentences that takes care of what you have agreed.
Alright, let's
And then
talk,
D-Wade's gonna
let's-
put it in the ordinance and we got it solved.
Dwayne's gonna figure out a way to make it more permanent, but we'll talk about this
No, not
again
us,
in
Dwayne.
August, okay? We'll solidify this in August, got good ideas here, but let's
Why will we
solidify
need to
it.
solidify?
Well, I wanna see how he's gonna do it, how he's gonna put it in the, he can't put it in the ordinance.
D-Wayne can put it in, he's an attorney.
Well,
He can figure
Dwayne,
it
tell
out.
me if you could put something like,
You can
you
figure
don't
it
have
out.
to tell me right now, come on, give the man a break, we just put it
The
on.
difficulty is putting it,
What's the
where to
point?
put it in the
Where to put
ordinance
it.
and it's a
It's a challenge.
requirement without teeth related to the development plan review process.
But you'll find some
So
place.
that's kind
It's part of the record, right? And so
Right,
it's a
right.
decision based on that part of the record.
Right, excellent,
And
okay.
will the future generations be confused by
Will be
this
Well,
criteria?
that's
True, but they'll come back and they'll see our minutes and they'll understand. All right, we gotta move on, so we gotta move on now to the discussion of the water treatment plant and the two unsolicited proposals. But before we get to that, we have to talk about what's the status of the representative on the water treatment plant?
Right.
How are we accepting proposals to build a water treatment plant from two private parties when we haven't even gotten our act together or we're close to getting our act together? So Raj, how are we getting our act together?
Madam Chair, can you repeat your question? I was trying to drive him
That's
to
all
put it in the ordinance.
Yes,
so-
well,
so
good man, good man. We need to have an update on the RFP or contract for the city's representative to work on the water treatment plant.
Okay.
How we doing?
So there are two parts to it.
Peter, can you take
One
over
deals
for me?
with the unsolicited proposals that we have. We have two unsolicited proposals. One unsolicited proposal, we put a little bit more emphasis involved, and the second one came in recently. The way it works is that it has to follow the Florida statute 255. Everything is proprietary and you can't share all the information. Essentially, there are two elements that go into these unsolicited proposals. One was the technical sufficiency and the other is the financial sufficiency. So we were asked to look at the technical part of it, and because that proposal borrowed one of the recommendations from Coroyo report, it was construed to be as technically sufficient for it to move forward, depending on what the wishes of the commission were. We also looked at the financial component of it, but that was handed over to another consultant, looking at the financial details. And then based on the findings, the manager made the recommendation that went to the commission. I think it was in the last meeting, right? It was in the last meeting. So that's where we are, and because we cannot discuss all the details, we are not privy to the second one. But even if we were, we would be prohibited from discussing anything because of the statutory limitations. So that's where, so since the commission has shown the interest and they have given 90 or 120 days, whether the 2 days,
It's 90 days from the day they advertise.
advertise it so that the other participants, who are interested, other parties, they can, submit their competing proposals. So that's where the process has started by that action by the commission. So in this next meeting, we have an item on the agenda, if you recall, that we had discussed the retaining of the owner's representative. And we had already done that work, and the recommendation by the staff to retain the services of Hazen as the city's owner's rep to guide us through this process. So that item is going to be on the agenda for the next commission meeting. So you have got two actions that are running parallel, that the commission has agreed to give 90 days for the other interested party. And then we have got the owner's rep that is also going to be assisting the city, and that approval is recommendation for the approval is on the next meeting's agenda. So that is all the information that I have at this time.
So on the owner's representative track, if we hadn't received these unsolicited proposals, then Hazen would be preparing some sort of RFP to go out to
Yes,
actually seek solicitations,
yes, yes.
and that's part of their scope.
Yeah, that was the
Correct.
part of their scope, that in the event if we did not receive these, these unsolicited proposals, then yes, we would be retaining them to guide us through, again, sift through the Arroyo report and just guide us through the RFP process.
And then, so that will be on the next commission agenda
Yes.
to retain them, with a recommendation
representative.
to retain them,
Yes,
right?
to retain, recommendation to retain them or assist us through this process.
Yeah.
Okay, well, the commission, are you gonna recommend that the commission not accept any of these proposals until you have that RFP put together?
No, the RFP is already out and we already made the recommendation, so it is going, the selection, we are recommending Hazen to be our owner's rep. That was done, Madam Chair, if you recall, several months ago, when you asked what was the status, the work was already done. We were holding it back because we just did not know what is going to be the commission's interest with these unsolicited proposals. Is it going to be like a design build thing, or is it going to be the unsolicited? So not knowing that was held in abeyance.
So can you tell us what these unsolicited proposals are proposing?
Well,
Oh, no, because of the
unfortunately,
sunshine?
the statutory 255 prohibits us from detailing, except that what I was saying when you were not here, that they have, normally it has to be, the way these unsolicited proposals, they work in general, is that the project is of such complex nature that the staff may not have the ability to define all the details enough for that project to be built. That's a very broad premise of an unsolicited proposal. In our case, we had Reese's report in 2017, and we also had Arroyo's report on 2019. So what these folks did, they extracted one of the recommendations from the recommendation. They have used that as a basis to give an unsolicited proposal that has all the details, part of it or some of it from those reports, and rest of it is proprietary, which we cannot discuss. So because of that nature of that, we cannot tell you what it is there, plus we are not privy, I was privy to one, but we are not privy to the other one, and because of the requirement, we can't share more than that. Other than those limitations, the process has started with the commission in the last meeting, giving 90 days for the other competing proposals to come into the play. And with the hiring of or retaining of the owner's representative, we are going to have some additional expertise that is going to guide us through this whole process.
So is Hazen and Sawyer going to be reviewing these proposals?
We just have to see which way the whole thing goes, but that is to help us through this process is a requirement in this owner's representative scope.
So, but eventually, the city Department of Public Works is gonna recommend to the commission either to accept this one or the other or none. Is that the way it works?
Yeah,
Or
when
none?
When it comes to that point, we will let you know, but right now, we do not know which way it is going to go.
Okay. Question, yes, Ralph.
Now, don't bring Hardy Cross again, I will go. I can explain.
I thought Hardy Cross was a city, I was
Yeah, Hardy Cross.
I thought it was a cartoon
It was
myself.
it was the old method of doing the pipe network and doing the pressures, so I think
It's a
Brandy's
whole network of pipe where they have all the characteristics.
It's like when you
of
used to
pipe,
use the
but-
slide rule, remember slide rules?
Yeah.
No, you don't even remember
Yeah.
slide rules.
Yeah, I remember that,
I remember
so
slide
you you bring back the memory.
Yeah, I admit it. I guess I like to ask, and maybe you can't divulge it, but was it many months back, a year or so back, there was a proposal that was out, and one of the elements of that proposal was a pilot study for the water at the Prospect well field and treatment of that on-site and or treatment at the 5 ash. Has that been, and then it was off, it was the previous Public Works Director took that out of that contract. And then it was reinstated several months back for someone to go do that.
Well, this I can answer, sir.
Okay.
So, we still have, regardless of what happens to the unsolicited proposal, it is still going to be some number of years before it is built and the water is delivered. Up until then, we have to keep our present plant running. So there are some minimal upgrades that we are doing, and as a part of your suggestion, we have reinstated, and he can provide a little bit more detail. So we are looking at from 2 or 3 perspectives. One is right at the well field that you're talking about, so we are conducting some additional tests and studies to see if there is something that we can do to see that this could be contributing to the end result or the color part of it.
Yeah, like you've got
Yes.
some bad wells.
Yes, so all those things, so-
Production zones in an area.
So he can
where
provide a little bit more detail, then within the system itself, we are making some upgrades. And those upgrades, we are, even if I can bring down a couple of units of the yellow colorization with our proposed improvements, I think that would be a great accomplishment. So that project has already started, it is working in place with the changing of the sand filters, adding some additional features. So all those things are running parallel, but go back to this and Abby, you can add something if I'm missing something, but go ahead, this was your baby, the well field.
Yeah, so the well field, right now, we did a preliminary study and we're digging deep into those wells, seeing exactly, we're doing like videos of the wells, the conditions, if they need to be cleaned, all that stuff. So it's very comprehensive. And we're supposed to have that in the next.
And the condition of the production zone, if it caved in or there's
Yes.
some.
Yeah, there's a camera that goes down, looks at everything. It's a very,
Well, that's good. That was
Complex.
important. That was important before, all this happened. So you get a good analysis of the quality of water
right.
for the future new water treatment plant, wherever and whatever.
However, right, wherever and whenever, right.
No, so we are doing some improvements in the interim, that's the reason why we did not want to invest millions of dollars knowing that we are going to be heading in that direction. But at the same time, we have the obligation to keep the present plant running, making sure that the instrumentation and the quality, whatever improvements we can make, we are doing that. So I'm hoping that, by the time, before it is built, if we can bring, as I said, a couple of notches down for the colorization of the, the water, that would be a great accomplishment.
Okay.
I will not go to San Francisco, Madam Chair, but I'll stay here.
All right.
Well, thank you all for doing that, because that was one of those things that I felt was a necessity before investing at that time, $430 million for a new site. And of course,
That was a very-
you know that I've still got heartburn on the location at the Prospect Well Field, and from a hydraulic analysis going further away from the city, and then also, well, I won't go into that, but.
Those were the, making improvements to the plant to improve both the functionality, the operations, and also possible improvement in the quality was a natural thing to do, except that, trying to piece everything together sometimes, especially in the transition period, that was something challenging. But we are there, sir.
Thank you
Okay.
both, appreciate it.
All right.
Hey, listen,
They do. All right, we are up to our Public Works update. The Water and Sewer Break Report 2021 mapping. It's in the back of our map here, 2021. Okay, again, we notice a cluster. The cluster seems to be in the middle of the city. Okay, we have a lot of information about the sewer system, okay? And we're still working on a comprehensive mapping and review of the water system. I think Rick was working on it, and we were looking forward to seeing similar graphics of the water system over which one could overlay these breaks. How is Rick's work going in terms of putting together the same level of analysis of the water system that we now have of the sewer system?
Yeah, Madam Chair, that is going to, we are working on trying, we are just trying to narrow down what is going to be the correct purchasing process to go through. We do have the scope of work, and it is a part of water consent order.
Yeah.
So we have two consent orders, one was the sewer consent order and the second one was the water. As a part of the water consent order, we are required to put a mapping of the entire distribution system.
Right.
Now, the maps that we have, they are not detailed enough that can provide the information that is going to be useful for us in the future years. So we have decided that we are going to start, in all probabilities, we are going to start from scratch. And Brandy is here, she is our new senior project manager for the consent order. She's working very closely with me at trying to figure out, how we can bring this, to a closure and award the contract to, one of the two vendors that we are looking at.
Let me ask you a question. There's two consent orders? The water was a
Yes.
separate consent order?
Yes, ever since, the water consent order was related to, remember in 2018 when we had that raw water?
Oh, the big hole, the big hole.
So because there were some gaps in the reporting process, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, and I could be wrong, so I apologize if I misspeak, but apparently the crew was not able to locate the valves, etc., because of which there were a lot of complications. So they said, guys, if you don't have this, let's see how good the map is, and the map was not found to be good, so I said, go ahead and do the entire map. So there are two parts of the mapping. One, we are just about finishing. The first part of that consent order is the mapping of the raw water system, starting from the wells to the treatment plant. So this is, and then they wanted us not only to map it, but exercise all the wells such that next time, if it happens, you are able to quickly manipulate.
But you said to the treatment plant. How about to the
From the treatment plant to rest of the cities, the distribution system,
Yes.
which is phase 2, and that is going to take about 2 years because there are hundreds of miles of distribution.
So actually, it'll be some time before we have a comprehensive view of the water system
Yes.
similar to the okay, because we told everybody that we don't need a moratorium and we don't really have 100% information about water, do we?
I mean, the water is even if we have the maps, I'm not too sure. We have to check the legality because of the security concerns. I'm not too sure even if we have it that we need to publish it.
Oh, I see. Well,
So
that is a
because of
very,
what happened
I didn't think of that.
So even if we do that, we have to be very careful, and I'm not too sure. So I think it is going to be in our possession just to make sure that, what Ralph was talking about, the fire flow and the pressures and everything else. We still do that, by the way. It's not that we don't do it, but we are going to have a full map, updated map that has all the information.
All right, but what we got from you several months ago, maybe a year ago, was a report that the water mains, the fire hydrants, were all now fully mapped and were being reviewed and exercised and tested on a regular basis. Please tell me we did that, because that bears on the moratorium.
No, because I think I will misspeak. I'll probably have to go back, and look at and then reconfirm. The information that was given to me is what we shared when, Rick was here, but I need to validate that.
Okay.
Because we were made to believe, or at least I was made to believe, that we do have the water maps and they are about 80% and 20% is not accurate. But then as I really peeling off, it just found that, the accuracy that was there was not somehow translated into the field with the crew. And then the random test did not indicate that it was as accurate as it was. Regardless, whatever we had was not acceptable to the consent order, so we are just trying to make sure that we do it the right way.
Could I ask you for a copy of that water consent order? I've never seen the water
Okay, we'll be
consent order.
happy to do that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Ralph?
I guess mine, you heard me groaning,
Yeah, no, I was
Must have been
groaning.
what I had for lunch. My concern was, Rick Johnson came and spoke and said, yes, there's been almost complete the static fire pressure testing. And which is nothing more than putting a pressure on a non-flowing hydrant and seeing that it gets 50 PSI.
Yeah, he gave us a chart. We had a chart of
Right.
all the fire
I have
hydrants.
to go back and I have to
Yes.
see.
And so that's basic.
So, Madam Chair, Abby Crumbs.
Hi, Abby.
What Rick has shared with the group earlier was our fire hydrant maintenance program, which been going out to all the fire hydrants and test them on an annual basis and making sure that the static pressure is there and so forth. And that program has been going on since late 16 till today. What Raj is mentioning is a different discussion,
Okay,
which is mapping the piping network throughout the city. But of course, part of that also incorporating the fire hydrants into that database asset management. But there are two things. The fire hydrant maintenance and testing, that's ongoing. We touch almost 100% of everything. We know all the deficient one, we replace them and so forth. The advanced testing that is done, part of the development permit is when they do the full static and dynamic testing and making sure that there is enough water pressure for the development.
okay, we're good. We're good with the fire. We're good with the fire?
Well, my only concern, and I'm just gonna brag about my experience in dealing with different water distribution systems, and fire protection comes out to be probably the biggest design tool that you have. I still say that the city ought to make sure that they test maybe some of the suspicious areas with a dynamic test in those areas just to make sure. You don't have to go through the entire network system, but you sure can go to weak areas like the southeast portion of the distribution system of the city and conduct a static test. A residential area, only, with ISO, it's only a 500 gallon per minute, maintaining at least a 20 PSI residual pressure on that, just to kind of do what I think is another good safety measure.
On another point, we also have an effort with the consultant, I think it's Hazen, to model the entire water system, and they are almost half done. They're gonna give us deliverable by September, and part of that effort also, they're gonna deliver to us a unidirectional flushing, which will help a great deal in terms of flushing the system, determine any aged water in the system, do to dead end and so forth. And that's been going separately. So we have all of these efforts going in parallel tasks in terms of anchoring down the system from hydrant to piping network to actual computer test model to a unidirectional flushing. That would help a great deal with telling us how the system is behaving.
That's very important. I'm glad you mentioned about, you're almost complete with that network and atlas sheet, because that's important to look at the system, and then relative to the 5-ash, the water treatment plant, and how the pressure varies when there is a flow, how much drop in the plant. So that's excellent.
So who's doing that?
And part of the unidirectional flushing, there were also
Hazen.
the engineers and the people who are doing the actual models. They're working hand in hand with our field people, operation people, to go to a certain areas and get the data back and forth to make sure that whatever model is telling us validate what's going on in the field and vice versa.
Thank you.
So the Hazen work is only working on the fire hydrant ends? Or are they modeling the whole water system or just the fire hydrants?
No, the Hazen is doing the model, the software model, and the unidirectional flushing. Mapping of the sewer system per the water consent order has been done with, I believe, WGI, which is the task order, and the scope being finalized to go to the commission.
Okay,
from that.
yes,
The dynamic testing that you're talking about, that has already been done by Hazen, and the whole report that he's talking about will be done in September, so that's gonna be part of that.
Oh,
okay,
super.
so we will see that sometime September, October, that work?
Yeah.
Good, because we're all concerned about fire. All right, one last thing on the agenda, and that is the CIP financial report. It is what it is, it keeps changing and there's no point in going through that. But the last part, the impact fee usage, okay? At our last meeting, we got a nice listing of all the impact fees over a specific period of time, how much money was spent, et cetera, et cetera. And on the last page of your booklet is a memorandum from Kimberly Holcomb to tell us where the money went, all right? So last month, we all looked at how much money was collected, and the question, as stated in the minutes, was, okay, now where did that money go? And so this is a memorandum that explains where the money went, okay? I have a question about this. It says in this that $2,700,000 of that, the amount of money that was collected, was used towards the water and sewer bond debt payment, okay? And the remaining funds were used for other respective expansions, all right? Now, one could probably take the position that paying off the bond debt is adding capacity in general. But it seems very vague to me. I don't know, it smacks of ROI to me. Using the money that we collected from the impact fees to pay off the bonds that we
What page is that
raised.
on?
It's the last page, Jack. Right, now I am sure the council the city attorney has seen this, and maybe even the city auditor has looked at this. But to me, I'm concerned about that. I just bring it up because, especially now with the new law in Tallahassee, which very, very specifically and tightly says that you must account for every dollar you collect in impact fees, seems a little overbroad to me to be using that money.
I think we thought that the bonds were going to be, the interest on the bonds and the repayment was going to be paid out of the the water sewer fund. We increased the changed rates for that.
Right, that's what I thought.
The whole model for letting the bonds was based on the income that was projected from the new rate
Rates.
structure, water sewer.
Including the interest on the
And now,
bonds.
so what you're saying is, well, if we're having to use, or we are using some impact fee money, in fact, the majority of it, then that money is not available to be spent on actual projects.
That's my thinking.
What was that,
Okay.
those bond funds used for?
Excuse me,
Were
the
they
bond
used to build
funds?
capacity?
Well, one could make the argument that within the bond fund program, there is projects that expand capacity. My understanding is that within that bond fund program, we were talking largely about
OD?
maintenance and replacement. I could be wrong, but it just seems,
Let me look
Seems
into
a
it and I'll
stretch.
get, no, let me get into a little bit more, I understand
Okay.
your question and I don't think this particular email answers that.
okay,
And since it was not copied to me, I would not know.
okay, so we're continuing this discussion, we'll
Yes.
continue the discussion. Okay, the last item on the agenda is our September meeting falls on a holiday. It's also the July month, where the commission is gone. And I would like to see a sense of the committee if we would like to take July to take a break and reconvene our next meeting in August. What's your thinking?
The commission doesn't meet in July?
No. Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
I motion that we skip the July meeting unless there is an emergency that requires the meeting.
Second.
Motioned and second. Anybody want to discuss that? Everybody in favor of that, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. No
So what
no
would be
opposition.
do we know the date of the next
First
meeting?
Monday,
Second.
August second?
Mhm.
August second
August
is our
2.
next meeting. All right, ladies and gentlemen,
We
we
don't have a
have,
date yet to meet with the commission, correct?
no, we do not. You will know as soon as I know.
I move to adjourn.
Before we
wait,
do
wait,
that,
wait.
any public,
I don't believe we have any public speaking. No? We're good?
on?
All right, then Jackie moved to adjourn. I agree with Jackie. Not that we needed a motion to adjourn, right? Okay. Guys, have a wonderful, wonderful summer,
Yes.
and we'll see you in August. Unless an emergency arises, in which case